I'm in a bind, and honestly, I don't know what to do. It all started 5 years ago, when my longtime neighbor Dave, who always went by David in formal settings, announced that his 15-year-old daughter, Emily, had vanished without a trace. He reported it to the police. It was on every channel, plastered across every social feed in town. My wife and I were heartbroken for them. When we saw David and his wife Amanda, we offered help, anything at all. Over the years, there were no updates, no leads. It became painfully clear what likely happened. We never asked them if they'd recovered a body. Sometimes Amanda invited us over for tea or a backyard barbecue. Both of them were changed. David was quiet, jumpy, always watching, as if someone was about to appear behind him in the kitchen. Amanda's face would go blank, and she'd stare at the walls for minutes, tears pooling before she blinked. Recently, though, I think David snapped. Last week I was dragging the trash to the curb when he came over and asked to borrow my long-handled post-hole digger. He was unusually calm, quiet, polite. I handed it to him. He said he needed to fix a problem with some old fence posts in his yard. He promised he'd return it the next morning. I didn't ask questions, I trusted him. After he walked back inside, I went upstairs with the intent to begin my Sunday errands. From the window I happened to glance over. He was out in his backyard, digging a deep hole in the far corner. It looked like a grave. David is in his late 50s, and it was obvious he was struggling. I couldn't just stand there. I grabbed our own smaller shovel and crossed the lawn toward him. He dropped the digger and called out, "No, really, Mark, I've got this." His voice quavered like he wasn't used to telling others no. "Just go back." I shook my head. "Seriously, it's no big deal," I replied. But he only tightened his grip around the post hole handle. "I won't let you touch this," he said flatly, and pointed toward the fence. His eyes looked different, hostile, like I was trespassing in some sacred place. It froze me. I mumbled something, uncrossed the lawn, and went back inside. I went upstairs and stared through the window. He spent another hour digging, stepping back to peer over the fences, as if checking to make sure no one was watching. I immediately ducked, feeling exposed. When I dared check again, he wasn't digging, but he was back at his porch, glancing up at my windows. He saw me. I pulled the curtain shut and hurried away. That night around midnight, I was jolted awake by the distinct sound of dirt being tossed. I lay rigid, listening. The scraping grew louder. I quietly crept downstairs and slipped outside. The moon cast a faint glow over the yard. I crept to the fence and nervously peered over. He was back at the same spot, with flashlights laid around, digging fast and methodical. His face looked intense, fixated. I held my breath. He looked around and headed inside. I waited until I was sure he was fully gone, and then climbed into his yard to inspect. The hole was mostly filled, but edges still soft. In the center, a dark corner of a black plastic garbage bag peeked through the dirt. I swallowed hard and quickly retreated the same way. No sooner had I closed my door than I heard the back gate's latch clicking shut. He was back. I crept upstairs and lay wide-eyed waiting for the sun. At first light, I rushed to the window. The hole was gone, smooth and undisturbed, as if it had never existed. His SUV was gone too, there in the driveway last night, but now parked on the street. My stomach cramped with dread. Whatever he buried or uncovered is now gone. I struggled through the day, felt his eyes on my house, even glimpsed movement at the window beside mine. It chilled me. That evening, I didn't tell my wife. I couldn't. I pretended to watch TV until I fell asleep, trying not to imagine what used to lie under that tarp, but I didn't sleep. Just before midnight, I heard a light tap at my front door. Then again, I jolted awake and stayed still. The door didn't open. I stared at the ceiling until the first hint of dawn. The next morning, I looked out and half expected to see Amanda casually strolling across the lawn with a broom. Instead, the lawn was empty. I examined the fence line. No signs of activity, no footprints. He'd patched up every trace. Eventually, I told my wife something felt off. I didn't say the hole or the bag. I said David was acting weird, evasive. We decided, maybe irrationally, to ask him about the digger. That afternoon, I knocked on his door. He opened it face stern. "What's up?" he asked, holding the tool behind his back. "Just wondered if you needed it back," I said casually. He handed it over, instantly turned and walked back inside. His back was rigid, unreceptive. Could have sworn I saw relief wash over my face at the sight of it, like a caretaker finally won part of his equipment back. When I returned home, I laid it in the garage, wiped my hands on my jeans, and realized I have a murder tool in my possession. A body burial shovel that may have been used to rebury or move the remains of his daughter, or worse. My stomach lurched. I debated calling the police, but I had no proof, just an ex-neighbor's suspicious behavior. Weeks passed. David stayed quiet. There were still those fleeting glances. My upstairs neighbor looked worried and airtight when we crossed paths. Then yesterday, I saw him. David stood at his front window in daylight, watching my front porch. I froze. He flicked the blinds shut as soon as he saw me. Then he turned away, distant, like a wind-blown shadow. I haven't slept well since. I'm second-guessing every morning, every glance I make toward their property. Part of me wants to talk to Amanda, see if she's seen anything. Another part, but I can't shake feeling like this is bigger than us all. What if she doesn't want to relive it? What if David catches on that I know? I feel watched. Every creak in the night, every rustle outside makes me flinch. I'm terrified. Am I overreacting? Paranoid? But my guts say otherwise. I thought digging a random hole was nothing, but that hole looked deliberate. Like he knew exactly where to dig and fill. How deep? What shape? The black bag peeked out for a split second before I beat a retreat. What was inside? I don't know where to go from here. If I tell the police, I have no evidence. If I stay silent, I'm complicit in something I can't see. And that tool he never returned. It's in my garage, but it isn't mine. It's something that belongs to no one, or to someone buried beneath the soil. David is avoiding me now. His eyes don't meet mine. He closes the blinds as soon as he sees me in my yard. We pass each other. He barely nods. The neighborhood feels off now, like everyone knows something unspoken. I see Amanda working in the garden, always glancing at the ground she's planting in. If something happened to their daughter, maybe they finally did what they should have 5 years ago. But if so, where is Emily now? In a funeral, a grave, a river. All I want is sleep. I just want peace. But every rustle of dirt, every thump at the window makes me jump. My skin crawls when I pass that spot in his backyard. And I keep asking myself, did he really dig up the body? Or did he bury something else entirely? Was that bag even a body? Or I don't know what to do. I don't want to call anyone and risk everything. I don't want to drive past his house and wonder if I see movement behind curtains. I don't want to live like this, but I think that's exactly what he wanted. To unbury something he couldn't cope with. Then rebury it when he realized he couldn't move it safely. To remind me we're neighbors in a quiet community. And to terrify me into silence. So I sit here typing this out in case something happens. In case I disappear and someone needs to know the truth. I don't know what he'll do next. But I know I can't live like this much longer. And I don't know how this ends. When I was 13, my parents rented a house out in the countryside while our actual home was undergoing renovations. The house sat alone, surrounded by dense trees and silent fields, the nearest neighbor a half-mile down a gravel road. It wasn't supposed to be long-term, maybe 3 or 4 months, just enough time for the contractors to finish up. I wasn't thrilled to be pulled from my normal life, but I figured I'd make the best of it. There was an old barn behind the house, a rotting wooden structure that hadn't been used in decades, and a dried-up well beside it that my mom warned me to stay away from. A few days after we moved in, I noticed someone watching me from the tree line. A kid, maybe a year or two older than me, just standing there behind the brush. He was barefoot, shirtless, and had a shaved head. When I made eye contact, he didn't move. I waved once. He turned and walked back into the trees. I told my dad about it, but he just said it was probably a neighbor kid exploring. The next day, the kid was back. This time he was closer at the edge of the grass behind the barn. He watched me as I threw rocks into the woods. When I approached him, he stepped back but didn't run. I asked him his name. He said, "Call me Rig." That was it. Rig. I asked if he lived nearby. He said, "I live where you don't look." I didn't know what to make of it. He gave off this weird vibe like he wasn't entirely present. But I was bored and had no one else around. We started talking every afternoon. He never smiled. He never laughed. And no matter how hot it got, he never wore a shirt or shoes. One afternoon, he told me he wanted to show me something. He said it was a game he played with his brother. I didn't know he had a brother. He told me his name was Glenn, and he didn't talk much. Rig said he was waiting where the cold breath comes out. I didn't understand what he meant, but I followed him into the woods. After about 10 minutes, we reached a clearing with a large, flat rock in the center. The air felt colder here, like the sun couldn't get through. Sitting on the rock was another kid, thinner than Rig, dirtier, and with black eyes that didn't blink. Rig whispered, "This is Glenn. He wants to play." Glenn reached into a satchel beside him and pulled out a small, rusted hunting knife. He handed it to Rig. Then Rig looked at me and said, "Close your eyes." I didn't. I stared at him. He stared back, then said, "Don't be a coward. We don't like cowards here." I told him I wanted to go home. He didn't stop me, but Glenn followed me through the trees, not saying a word. That night, I locked my bedroom door. The windows in that house had no screens, and they didn't close all the way. Around midnight, I heard tapping, first at my window, then at my brother's down the hall. I crept into his room. He was awake, staring wide-eyed at the glass. There were two faces staring in, Rig and Glenn. I pulled the curtain shut. The tapping stopped. For the next week, things escalated. Every night they came to the windows. Sometimes I'd hear them whispering under the floorboards. Glenn left bones on the porch. Animal bones. Once a jawbone cleaned white. My dad blamed foxes. My mom started sleeping with a light on. Then one night, the power went out. The house was pitch black. I couldn't sleep, so I lay in bed, clutching a flashlight. Around 1 in the morning, I heard creaking from the attic. I knew it couldn't be either of my parents. I shined the light at the ceiling. The access panel was shifting. I backed into the hallway, but the attic door dropped open. Someone climbed down. Not Rig, not Glenn. This one was taller, older. His face was wrapped in bandages, only one eye showing. He said, "You were told not to look." I ran. So did my brother. We locked ourselves in the bathroom until morning. When my parents asked what happened, I told them I wanted to go home. I told them I hated the house. My dad said we had 2 more months to go. But the next night, something changed. The trees were full of sounds, breaking branches, whispering, and then screaming. Not loud, controlled. A kind of chanting scream, repeated and rhythmic. It lasted for hours. I couldn't sleep. At some point, I passed out. In the morning, there were symbols carved into the barn walls. My name, my brother's name, words I didn't recognize. I told my dad I'd run away if he made me stay another week. He didn't believe me. That night, I packed a bag and planned to sleep in the car. But just as I reached the back door, someone knocked. Once, then twice. I froze. I looked through the peephole. It was Rig. Only it wasn't. He was older, paler, and his skin looked wet. He didn't blink. Behind him stood Glenn, and behind them, 5, maybe 6 others, all barefoot, all staring. I ran to my parents' room. My dad went outside with a baseball bat. He found nothing, but he stopped brushing me off after that. The next morning, my parents packed everything. We left by noon. We never went back. Later that year, I looked up the property. No one had bought it. It sat empty. A local blog mentioned that the land used to belong to a family known as the Riggs. No one knew what happened to them. Only that one day they were all gone, and no one was supposed to build on their land again.